RJ Manuelian is a defense attorney. He's based in Los Angeles. He's with me now live as well. And RJ, I think maybe you might be best to weigh in on what do you do on either side of this conflict? How do you counsel Chris Watts if he's going to be on this phone call? How do you counsel this grieving family? They are more than likely to be on this phone call. They requested the emergency hearing to deal with all of the things left behind. Shanann had no will, and they've called this pressing, time-sensitive issues. How do you counsel these parties on a call like this?
Well, you have to prep your client properly. You have to tell them that you have to be sensitive towards the family because they have lost their daughter and they're devastated. But more importantly, what you want to do is make sure that he doesn't say anything that could actually be used against him. They're going to record these phone calls, and if he says something incriminatory, meaning that if he says something that goes against his interest, that will absolutely be used against him in a court of law.
RJ, let me ask you something. Typically, court proceedings in this country are public because this is a democracy, and this is a civil matter. It's not criminal. The DA has nothing to do with it, but it's a phone call. So are we privy to what happens in this phone call?
Typically, public proceedings are things that the public could go see. This may not be public, and the judge could put an order to allow only certain parties to listen to the conversation, depending on whether they think that it's going to harm the criminal case or harm the civil case. So they may put parameters on who may be able to listen to these calls.
But specifically, this will be recorded, not just, because most calls out of a jail are recorded anyway, whether it's a hearing or a chat with your mom, but also because it's public record. They have to have this on record. It has to be recorded.
Yes, they have to be recorded, actually, because all the parties are allowed to get transcripts, and they're allowed to have everything transcribed to take a look at it. It could be former testimony, and it could be used against either of the parties in the criminal matter or the civil matter.
All right, well, hold that thought for a moment. As you know, God give that family strength tomorrow on that phone call. We will do our best to try to dig into the record on this.
Say hi.
Oh, I love it. Good job.
High five.
High five, baby. You guys like my hat?
I love the hat. I might just have to comb over your hair like this and say, hey.
What we know now is hard to believe. A father accused of killing those two little girls. But just as incredible is how this case has snowballed in the court of public opinion, where all of the dark possibilities are being tested and narrowed down and debunked by tens of thousands of amateur detectives who are following this story on Facebook. It is where you are posting some of the best questions to help us figure out exactly what might have happened in that house. And tonight we've got some very good questions as well. This one comes from Michelle Gerber Anderson. Michelle asks, couldn't the home be considered a time-sensitive matter? That was something that was actually listed in the probate documents. Time-sensitive, we need an emergency hearing. So Michelle asks, couldn't the home be considered a time-sensitive matter? If it goes into default, anything left in the house could be gone forever. RJ Manuelian, as the attorney in the house, I think that's a really good question. We were trying to figure out what was so time-sensitive.
Well, all the evidence is time-sensitive. You want to gather and collect everything untapped, untouched. You want to establish a chain of custody.
Yeah, but so this is probate. This isn't criminal. This is the family filing probate saying we need an emergency hearing. This is time-sensitive. What could be time? I'm just guessing, I'm spitballing here. Maybe making mortgage payments on the home so it doesn't fall into default and then, be repossessed by the bank, and then no one gets access to that. They don't get to resell it.
Well, my understanding is the Watts had financial issues before this happened. So if they were already late on their mortgage payments and if they're in default, then there's a time deadline to getting that default lifted. So perhaps they're trying to save the house and they have a deadline to meet with the mortgage brokers or the bank.
Yeah, there's all the issues of what's inside the house, too, with the moving van that showed up the other day. Some neighbors saying they saw a bed frame and a mirror, at least. The family confirming to us that there were personal effects, family memorabilia, mementos, etc. But we don't know exactly what was in that moving truck. It's fairly big, so you can only assume some big things were planned for the move. But probate is interesting because there's a car. There's Shanann's car. It was listed in the probate. Real quickly, there's a good question here from Cheryl Swartz-Menke. My question